Welcome to the Sandwich Generation Pod. I'm Robin.
And I'm Eliesa. And today we're tackling a topic that has lived rent-free in my nervous system for years.
If you've ever opened a letter from the county and immediately thought, ugh, I need a minute, this episode is for you.
I have been so freaking excited about this episode and also deeply triggered because today we're talking about medical assistance for long-term care in Minnesota.
And we're not doing it alone.
Thank God. We are joined today by Rachel Schromen, an elder care attorney and founder of Schromen Law. Rachel focuses her practice on medical assistance, long-term care planning, and helping families navigate one of the most confusing systems that we have.
We started talking about this topic and realized how meaty it was and how long of a conversation it was. So we split it into two parts. The first part is about Eliesa's personal journey with her parents and putting them on medical assistance. So stay tuned and listen to why she became so passionate about medical assistance.
I am truly so excited about this episode. I feel like since we started this podcast, this has been a topic that is very near and dear to my heart because the medical assistance process was one of the toughest pieces to the puzzle in taking care of my parents, and it still is. This is a topic that I think is just riddled with so many questions. It's also a topic that is very nuanced. Every family, every situation is different, but we are so lucky today to have Rachel Schromen back.
Yay, Rachel!
Like, you have been in our daily lives for like the last year in a way. And it's been lovely. So for those of you who are new to listening, Rachel was on season 1 and she is on the episode where we talk about power of attorney.
Second most listened to and watched episode.
Yep. And almost first, to be honest. Like the numbers, it is a very, very popular episode because it's so informative.
People loved it. They love you. The people have spoken, Rachel.
And now we're back to talk about medical assistance, which is another huge topic. So welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
So when we talk about medical assistance, we also have to say a couple things.
I love how excited you are about this.
I am so excited, you guys.
I'm like, wait, what?
I got up
we
early. I had my coffee. I was like, today is the day we get to talk about medical assistance for long-term care in Minnesota.
I wonder if there's anyone else out there that's like listening in their car that's like, I'm excited about it too.
I should say everyone calls it medical assistance, but today we are talking about medical assistance for long-term care specifically. This is for people who are over the age of 65 that we are caring for. And the proper name is medical assistance for long-term care. We are also in the state of Minnesota. So for any listeners who are outside of the state of Minnesota, different rules apply.
I really feel like I would like to hear the reason you're so passionate. I want to hear your story first before we get into some of the other stuff. Like, why is it so personal for you, Eliesa?
So I grew up in a small town and my parents had middle-class jobs. They didn't make a ton of money, but they did try their best to plan for the future. They had a financial planner who frankly didn't really give them great advice, but they also were of a generation, maybe you all can relate, where they grew up being told that Social Security would be enough and also that the government was going to take care of them. And so when it came to retirement, when it came to aging, like, yes, there was retirement and yes, there was savings. It wasn't enough. That's kind of where the financial planner dropped the ball for them, in my opinion. They also made some other financial decisions along the way that could have helped them a little bit further financially before needing to go on medical assistance, but honestly, not that much further with the cost of care, especially at private pay rates right now. So I think the narrative that my parents were told that the government was going to take care of them, it technically is, right? The government is paying for their life right now, but it is not the golden years that they were promised. And I don't think that they ever looked into the details of really what that meant. But again, they were of a totally different generation where like this was the plan. So I think that...
So what happened?
So my mom's health started declining far before my dad's. And she also was really excited about what life might look like in assisted living. She was excited about the community aspect that she had heard about. She was excited about somebody keeping up with the house cleaning and the laundry and the cooking. And she was at a place in life where she could no longer drive. Mobility was getting really hard. And so to be in a building that was with other people was something that was really exciting to her too. So this was right before COVID hit. So this is probably like 2019 or something that we started having the conversation and started looking into assisted living. And we'll get into this, but my parents had considered the 5-year clawback, knowing that this was their plan. So that was helpful. But we started looking into assisted living, but then because of COVID, everything kind of shut down, right? Like not a lot of places were having tours, not a lot of places were having new residents come in. And during that process, though, I was continuing to ask the questions and run the numbers. And I was like, okay, the private pay amount, which I learned that going into many assisted living communities, they want a minimum of 2 years private pay before they'll accept families on medical assistance. Also, some assisted living communities only have a percentage of apartments or rooms that are for people on medical assistance. All the rest are private pay. They have businesses to run. They have funding needs to meet too. So that made sense to me, but that was part of the puzzle that I don't think my parents considered or knew. So very quickly, I was like, okay, well, I think this is still going to work because really my dad was in good health. We were moving really from my mom. And my dad was going to move with her too. So I'm running the numbers and I'm like, okay, but this money doesn't last forever, but it'll definitely get us a little over the 2-year mark, right? So we'll be in a safe zone. Now, the place that my parents did end up moving to has been wonderful, has been great. Assisted living is not perfect these days. But what happened is right after we moved in, my dad's health, actually, he had an emergency medical event and his health drastically declined. His bills skyrocketed. And so the money that I had allotted to get us through those 2 years, we didn't make it. We didn't make the 2-year mark. Now, we were in a very specific situation, a very lucky situation, I think, where it was just after COVID and people really wanted residents back in their buildings. So the building worked with us, even though we did not make that 2-year mark. They worked with us to accept medical assistance. Otherwise, we would have had to look for somewhere else to live, which is a reality for a lot of families too, if they can't make that 2-year mark. So I'm starting to run the numbers and I'm also starting to realize like this money is running out. We need to apply. The application process for medical assistance is the thing that I feel like nearly killed me. Like I am not kidding when I say that that was like the most stressful process of my entire life. I am a business owner. I run multiple businesses. I went into this being like, I can absolutely help them with paperwork, with doctor's appointments, and this medical assistance thing. Sure, it's an application you fill out, right? It was so much more than that. And the amount of information and time that it took to gather the information, it was, years of bank statements. It was all these random documents like grave plots that they had where like there's not even I was literally calling other funeral homes looking for who the undertaker was at this random, graveyard that they had plots at because that was considered an asset. It was just a lot of random things that was way beyond just filling out an application and having some bank documents to prove to get on medical assistance. I think at the time too, the state was really backed up. They still are with applications. And so everything was really delayed. It was always really stressful. I know the county's number now. And whenever they call me, I think I still have like a physical reaction to like, it feels like my cortisol just spikes, right? And I'm just like, oh my gosh, what are they going to tell me now? Or what are they going to ask for now? But it was really, really difficult and really trying. And so while we did end up getting my parents on medical assistance, there was so much that I learned in the meantime. One is that even though they're married, they are two different people in the medical assistance system. They've been married for over 40 years. Like I had to separate all of their assets and make them very individual people in a system. And that was also a layer of complication. And now that they're in the system and we've been here for a few years, it's a little easier, but it still requires a level of maintenance that is a little more than I thought going into it. So that is why I'm so passionate about this, because I feel like A, it was harder than I thought to apply. B, it took so much time and emotional energy and effort to advocate for them, whether that was on the assisted living side to convince them to help our family, or whether that was with the county to convince them, like, no, they need this and they need this now. Endless hours on hold, endless hours.
And I just want to say, like, Eliesa is one of the most organized, like, able to prioritize, doesn't get overwhelmed with paperwork type of people that I have seen. So if she's saying it, it's bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was bad. Also, the loss that my parents have experienced, because while this was kind of their plan, it does not function how they were told it would, or the narrative that they grew up with of how the government would take care of them. The realities of that are very different. And, they did their best. They also are very much, we are a middle America family. And I think about that a lot, of how many people in our country there are average incomes in which saving for retirement and the cost of care are not adding up. It is a huge discrepancy. And that, I think, is one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about this topic too, because as there is a aging population, there's more need for medical assistance, because financially it's not sustainable to have cares as you age. Like, it is extraordinary, the cost. We've had bills as high as $19,000 a month, and we've, had bills as low as like $6,000 a month.
My parents' bill will probably be around there this month. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to chime in because I have listened to your story, and I think it's such an important story. And I think there's so many people that either have experienced it or are about to within the next couple of years, based on like the numbers we're seeing of people in this sandwich generation and aging population. I personally am right on the brink of needing to start the process. So my parents are both in assisted living. Well, my mom's now in memory care, and the costs are astronomical. We experience the same thing, a difficult time getting in, proving private pay. So I know there's a lot to break down. If you're totally new to this, we're going to start from the basics. Thank you for sharing your story, because I know like how much emotion is tied up in it for you, and I can like always hear it in your voice. And Eliesa isn't only, so she really did this alone. Mm-hmm. And she is just, a warrior.
So Rachel, at a high level, why do people go on medical assistance in Minnesota, and who is it for? Explain that to us in just very plain terms.
So medical assistance for long-term care specifically is for individuals who are 65 or older, who need a skilled nursing level of care and get to a point where they no longer have enough money to private pay for that.
Can I just also interrupt you for 1 second? Because the skilled nursing terminology, I just wanted to say like that I think is kind of the nursing home, sort of like what people imagine is like you have people that need like a nurse. It's not assisted living, and it's not necessarily memory care. It's like people that need on-hands care, almost like in a hospital. I just want to clarify that, because skilled nursing is like a term now that I've learned about. Okay, go on.
Yep. In Minnesota, to qualify to be able to go on medical assistance for long-term care, you have to be eligible in terms of the level of care you need. So they have that eligibility requirement, which you just spoke to, Robin. And then you also need to be financially eligible, which, Eliesa, you were kind of referencing with the application and the 5-year clawback and that stuff that we'll get into more detail around.
Well, can you clarify what these terms mean? And it's okay if it's general, because again, we're kind of talking at high level. But what is medical assistance versus the elderly care waiver versus the Cadi waiver? Because those are 3 terms that come at you quickly when you're entering the medical assistance process.
And you're like, what's behind door number 2? I'll just do that one.
Yeah. Well, and what's hard is these terms get used interchangeably and incorrectly all the time. So I could have someone call my office and say, my mom's in a nursing home, she's on elder waiver. I know that they mean she's on medical assistance for long-term care. But in Minnesota, those are 3 very distinct, different benefit programs. Medical assistance for long-term care is for people who are living somewhere else. They're in a skilled nursing facility over the age of 65. Elder waiver is if they're still in the home or in assisted living.
So your parents are actually on the waiver.
They do. Well, they have both. So to my understanding, and Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong on this, how I was told is that medical assistance is the program that helps pay for the apartment, and
The waiver
the
pays
waiver
for the cares.
pays for the cares. Or maybe I have that wrong.
So we'd have to get, I'd have to get into a lot more details about your parents' situation to
Sure.
explain what they have. But what I will say is, so there's medical assistance for long-term care that pays for nursing home care. A person can also be on medical assistance as like their medical and health insurance through the state.
Yes. So yeah.
if they're aging in place or they're in assisted living, they're not at that higher level of care, they could very well be on elderly waiver, but also receiving their health insurance through the state.
That is correct. So you're explaining it correctly. So yes,
They're a
'cause
blend. Your parents are a blend.
They are. So they are both on the elderly care waiver.
Yep,
And
that's where
medical
people
assistance
are
is their
going
health
home.
insurance.
Perfect. Now,
Yep.
the Cadi waiver, that is for people who are under the age of 65. So every once in a while, we'll have, a couple come in and one of the spouses, they're getting to a point where they'd be financially eligible. They need support and benefits, but they're not over 65. So then the Cadi waiver comes in. I don't do a lot of work with the Cadi waiver. Our office does a lot with medical assistance for long-term care and elder waiver for individuals over 65.
Yep, that makes sense. I should also mention that when my parents got on medical assistance, they had previously had health insurance through Blue Cross Blue Shield. And when they got on medical assistance, they still pay a monthly supplemental insurance for a Blue Cross Blue Shield plan, but it is under the state. So sometimes, honestly, like when we do their doctoring, they have like two different cards. They have a Blue Cross Blue Shield card, and then they also have a state kind of medical assistance number or card or something like that. And so I frankly don't know who is billed when for what, but then they have an elderly care waiver obligation. It is called, where every month we pay that to their assisted living community on top of their rent.
So let's back up a little bit. Let's say someone is right about to do this, or they're thinking about doing it. Is it possible to sort of paint a picture of like, what are the first couple of steps? Let's say they're sandwiched like us. Their parents are at this point where that their money is dwindling. Mm-hmm. What are the best things that we could point people to do as the first couple of steps?
Well, you could take it with a grain of salt, but my first suggestion is going to be to reach out to an elder law attorney.
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend that. Having done it alone, I would recommend that.
An elder law attorney can do a number of things. One is, if you reach out well enough in advance, they can work with you or your parents to figure out how the money can be best utilized and used strategically, rather than just writing checks to the nursing home until it gets down to a certain amount. And, I've had clients come in where they say, well, dad's in the nursing home, it's $10,000 a month, that's pretty average. He has $200,000 in this many months, we know we're going to have to apply. Well, there are a number of things that they can do proactively and potentially qualify and apply and go on medical assistance sooner. And, you can pay money to an attorney or not get the advice and just give that money to the nursing home. So reaching out to an attorney to have a proactive plan on how to utilize the funds, but then also get some of that information as to what to expect. Because what you explained I thought this would be a simple application and that it was a whole process, a whole thing. That's not uncommon. As a practicing attorney, I kind of had that experience, right? Like you learn about things, you see the path, you see what needs to be done, and you think, oh, that sounds simple. And then when you start to go down the path, it actually is a lot more complex than expected. So sometimes we work with individuals where they will reach out to us like the month before they have to apply. And they go, okay, we've been waiting and now we're ready. And that's always pretty stressful because one, we've missed the boat on really being able to be proactive and strategic and helpful. But 2, we're also now not getting ahead of what to expect. It's like, all right, well, hold on to your seat. Here we go. Out of any area of law, this area of law is so incredibly fact specific.
Yes.
You know, in estate planning, there's a number of buckets that you can kind of file them into. Cases can be quite similar. I have not had many elder law cases that fall under the same category. They're very, very, very different. And it can also depend what county worker reviews the application.
Yes. So let's talk about that for a second, because I find this to be incredibly true. First of all, my parents are in Hennepin County. And for those listeners out of Minnesota, Hennepin and Ramsey County are our 2 largest counties here in Minnesota. And so my parents live in Hennepin County. And this is an area where I thought that where I've learned I was a little naive, because coming from a small town, I kind of thought like, oh, well, it's going to be way easier working with a larger county on all of this. And I would absolutely beg to differ that working with a larger county is more challenging than working with a smaller, local, more small town, I guess, county. They're very overwhelmed. And it is very true that depending on the caseworker who is processing your file, I think a lot of the stress that I experienced was directly related to a certain caseworker who was processing my parents' file. Mm-hmm. He was literally hopeless. I reported him several times. It was very clear that he hated his job so much that like he wanted to kind of make everyone else's life a little harder, right? And I would literally have to talk to supervisors. I would get transferred to people and they would be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah, this person has kind of a track record with this. Let me get it back on track. So it is true that sometimes, depending on the caseworker or the county, things can be more difficult. My advice, though, is that if you get a caseworker that seems like they are making things more difficult, ask to speak to a supervisor, ask to be switched to a different caseworker, because that was an option. And I wish I knew that that was an option sooner in the process, because I think things could have been a little easier. But that is very true in my experience.
That's really good advice.
Yeah.
Because like, I think in all the subjects that we deal with, finding the right person is always the game changer.
There's also, I will say, there is an individual. I'm going to say his name because his name is Russell. Russell is an angel at the county. He is amazing.
Thank you, Russell.
Thank you, Russell. And every time he gets on the phone, like I know his voice now, right? And I'm like, yes, like I feel like I've won the lottery. I've won the jackpot for the day, because I know that he is going to be efficient. He's going to be helpful. He's going to be positive. And he also wants the best for my parents. Like we
need a Russell.
He is amazing. It's not all doomsday. I have also experienced very helpful people on the other end of the line, but that is part of the puzzle, is what county you are in, how quickly or complicated the process can be. Okay, we're going to pause for a moment to take a little breather. Everyone in, everyone out. This medical assistance topic is a heavy one. If you know anyone who might benefit from this episode, go ahead right now, just take a pause and share it with them. A share and review go a long way for this podcast, and we want to make sure that everyone is as informed as possible, especially when it comes to medical assistance. Okay, now back to the show.
I want to comment a little to the county worker, because you know what you're saying, Eliesa, with it depends what county worker and what county you're in. That is absolutely true. So I worked with a woman, and she got to the point where her husband was in memory care. She was in the home. They were asset eligible, and she went through the application process, and the county worker requested a ton of documentation. And this county worker went through all of the bank statements, and she was highlighting, $10 payments that my client had made on behalf of her granddaughter at Y Camp. And she was like, this is a gift. This is subject to the 5-year look back. And my client was very, very worked up, very emotional, very upset, very like, how can this person be doing this? Why is this taking so long? And she tried to do it herself. And then she eventually got to the point where she was so emotionally distraught and overwhelmed and confused that she came back and hired me to kind of take it over the finish line. And the first thing I did was kind of support her in taking a step back. And I was like, yes, this was a lot of information. She's really getting into details. And sorry, but she's doing her job really well.
Sure.
Like, This is what they are required to do. It's really hard and frustrating for us. By the way, you could not pay me enough to work that job.
Right.
I can't imagine. And right now, Hennepin County especially, they've had budget cuts and they are short-staffed, and it is just a mess.
Yep.
But there's an element of the way that I would react to a county worker not doing things fast enough or asking for more information on behalf of a client versus if I was pushing my own mother's through is very, very, very different. And it's hard when you're trying to navigate this and you're running into, well, this is what they're supposed to do. This is technically how the process goes. This is working with the county, and it's your own family and your own parent. And that's a huge benefit of having an attorney. I mean, I think as women in particular and sandwich generation, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves that we should figure this out. We should be able to take care of it. I can do X, Y, and Z in my professional life. I should be able to do it here. And we don't give ourselves permission to be a child in that space.
Yeah.
To be someone who's grieving the transition in addition to have to navigate really complicated financial and legal stuff.
I cannot recommend hiring an attorney more for this process because how stressful it was on me. I mean, I literally started having heart palpitations and went to a cardiologist because I was that stressed about it. I kept thinking that I was having a heart attack or something. I wasn't, right? But also it stressed my parents out. And then I had to constantly, our relationship was really, we were fine, right? We all knew that it was supportive, but it was so strained and it was so stressful for everyone that if there was a third party, an attorney or an office helping us manage, helping us set that expectation, helping us with the actual paperwork, but also keeping track of the filing and being the one to make those phone calls. And correct me if I'm wrong, but is that kind of a perk of hiring an attorney as someone who is calling the county and who is appealing something maybe to make sure that it gets done on time?
The firms that we don't do a ton of applications, we refer them to colleagues of ours that are set up to do a lot of applications because they have staff that calls and sits on hold. They have staff that have gotten to know the people that get pushed through. I wanted to share that about the personal piece and the value of having support. I don't want this to come off as an hour of convincing you to hire a lawyer because sometimes it's not feasible. It can be asking a friend to help you make the phone calls, bringing in someone else that isn't as emotionally involved. I mean, I do that a lot. There's a lot of things that I counsel friends and clients on and help friends and clients do that I don't even try to do for myself because I know my own limitations and I know where I also need that support from an outside party. I've had clients cry in my office when I give them permission to be a daughter.
That would have been me. That totally would have been me. Probably still is me.
I tell clients regularly, I say, if my mom lives in Iowa, but I'm if my mom moves to Minnesota and I'm helping her navigate moving into a nursing home and we need to walk this process, I can tell you exactly the attorney I will hire to do it for me. And they look surprised and they go, you wouldn't do it yourself? And I'm like, no, I'm not her lawyer. Yeah. And by the way, I won't do as good of a job for her as I would for a client because I'm emotionally involved. I want to be able to cry and process the emotions of watching my mom age and go into a nursing home, But that piece aside, let's get into some actual legal advice.
Well, I just want to have a summation moment too, because if you do have a limited amount of money, obviously that's what this is about, right? You're looking at the finances and you're what are my choices? And this is a position we'll be in. Me and my sister have this conversation of what should we take this money and use it for a lawyer? Or should we try to make it last and write the checks, right? So it's really good advice to hear that if you're looking at the bank accounts, you're seeing them go down because you get a lot of mixed messages. And I want to kind of explain that too. If you're, the position we're in right now is you can't be like, we talk to people about like, my parents might have to go on a waiver, or if they were on a waiver, we wouldn't have been able to get into the current assisted living place that my parents are in. They would have denied us because we were either already on the waiver or because we couldn't prove that we had 2 years of private pay. So I just want to say, like, that's one hoop that you have to jump through. That's big. Two, once you get there, I'm like, okay, we just got in, right? We proved we had enough for 2 years, but now we've got to start the process, because I'm hearing you and I'm like, okay, we got to start now. They have still money in the bank. They're not to $3,000, because a lot of times you get this message like, don't even start the process until your parents they only have $3,000, which is kind of confusing. But your messaging is saying, take the money you have, find someone who can help you start the process and talk you through some strategy. And it's never too early, even if it feels like you don't have very much. So I just wanted to like do a summation of all that. If people are like in the position that I'm currently in and you've already been through.
I will also say really quickly that I first applied when my parents had $10,000 left. And I was also told, like, yep, start the application early because they're backed up. And by the time that they get to your application, they'll only have $1,000 left, right? We got denied the first time, and I had to do everything all over again and pull documentation for all new dates.
Because
it was too early. Yep, because $10,000 left to their name was too much money to be approved.
Well, the advice I always used to give, and this is prior to recent years where it's even slower now in the metro, we'd say to apply when you're 3 months out from needing it. And now it's even longer. Because
they do go back of like 2 or 3 months, correct? Like they do kind of accommodate for a little bit of time, but we were just like outside of that window too.
But would you have engaged a lawyer? Like, would you have engaged a lawyer early? Not necessarily done the application, but talked to a lawyer earlier. Do you know what I mean?
I would have absolutely hired an attorney if I knew that
way before that
attorneys
window
helped with applications. I didn't even know that. I actually remember asking around. Like, there's so many more resources that are out there now, and people who are more vocal about those resources than there were even 5 years ago. And I remember calling the senior linkage line and being like, is there anyone who can help with this? And they were basically like, nope, and here's the form. And so I kind of felt like the only way through this was for me to fill out the application for my parents, because I knew that it was going to be too confusing for them. So had I known that there were law firms and elder law attorneys out there who do help with the medical assistance for long-term care applications, I would have used their money that they had left without a doubt to help with this. Without a doubt. I would not think second about it. It's good to get your eyes on an application early, I guess I would say, because there's a lot of questions on the application that you have to like maybe, you know, communicate with your parents or dig for some information, or there's a lot of assets to consider also when like they've lived whole lives together. And, you know, again, a lot of that sometimes might be depending on their circumstance. So, and this is where it gets tricky, is where I feel like depending on their health circumstance, or like how your mom is now in memory care and then your dad is in assisted living, they'll probably be on 2 different programs essentially, or levels of care, things like that. And so you're separating bank accounts, you're separating assets. My parents have 2 separate bank accounts, even though they're married, that I pay all their bills off of because they're 2 individuals in the same system. Right? But I also have to send in the same, because they're married, I have to send in like the same paperwork for both of them to each of their like renewal applications. But their individual finances need to be tracked because they're looking into the assets, and they're making sure that you're not spending. So let's kind of go into that. Like, let's talk about the realities of being on medical assistance for long-term care. So Rachel, can you speak a little bit to like what is taken care of by the state? Like, what are people allowed?
So in Minnesota specifically, if an individual person is applying, they're basically allowed to have $3,000. You have to reduce assets quite a bit. However, if it's a married couple and only one person is in a nursing home, there are extra allowances for that spouse. They're referred to as spousal impoverishment laws that basically state just because, or what they work to function as is just because your spouse is in a nursing home doesn't mean you need to be impoverished by those bills. So it allows the spouse that's still living in the community, not needing additional care, to keep the home, have one vehicle, have additional assets upwards of 150,000 or more. It changes regularly and it's different state to state. So it's important to get advice on specifics at the time and in your state, but there can be more assets kept. And
that's good to know.
Information from the county isn't always accurate that people receive.
Because I remember I did speak to someone in your office who said that to me and my sister, and I was like, that's very different information than I've ever heard. I have heard, nope, they have $3,000. That's it. And so it's, again, even if you have limited funds, knowing the loopholes and knowing the rules and having an attorney to coach you, I think could really benefit you in the end. Yeah.
I would say, interesting story. I have a colleague who is an elder law attorney. This is years ago. He got a call at his office, and it was an elderly woman, and he also does real estate law. So I think she got confused and was trying to call a realtor, but she called his office and said, "Can you help me sell my house?" And he said, "Well, no, I don't do that, but tell me what's going on." And thank God he had a few minutes and asked, because she said, "Well, my husband is in a nursing home, and I don't have any more money to pay. And the county sent me a letter and said I have to sell my house and keep paying his nursing home bills." And this lawyer went, "That really doesn't sound right. Can you come in tomorrow? Bring that letter with you."
Wow.
So she comes into his office. He looks at the letter and he is like, "This does not make sense." Calls the county and the county goes, "Oh, that was sent out in error."
Absolutely. Okay, so let's just stop there. The amount of letters that I get in error are many. And I have one over on my desk right now because I have to make a call later today. And every time I get a letter from the county, honestly, now I automatically call to verify if it is correct. Yeah. That is an automatic response that I do because more often than not, that information that I'm receiving is not true. I've received letters saying that my parents' health care is going to be dropped. I've received letters of completely wrong elderly care waiver obligation numbers. And every time I call, I explain it, they look into it, and it's usually a calculation error. So what I have also been told numerous times by Hennepin County is that a lot of the medical assistance in general is kind of run on an automated system. Elderly care waivers, elderly waivers are done manually still. So therefore the automatic program or whatever, does its thing, sends out these letters, but the calculations are not correct at all. So right now when we're recording this, it is January. At the beginning of every year, I have to prove or submit, I should say, paperwork with new Social Security payments, health insurance premiums, any retirement amounts that change for the new year. And then they recalculate their elderly waiver obligation. And so we get a new amount that we have to pay every year. But I always get a series of letters where the calculations are wildly wrong. Either before that paperwork is submitted, after the paperwork is submitted. Like what I have on my desk right now is probably what the automatic system recalculated their elderly waiver cost at once I submitted their 2026 numbers, but that's not the correct number. And I know that. It's usually much higher. But if somebody didn't know that, they would just be spending money that frankly they don't have. Like these numbers don't make sense to me. And when I see them, I'm like, okay, so we went from $11 to $405. That does not make sense, right? And so if there's ever a question, it is so common that incorrect information gets sent out, and it's terrible that it does. And also it is kind of a mess of a system to navigate. So
okay,
again, something I'm very passionate about because I spend a lot of time defending those.
And really, I think that's going to be really helpful information to people that are listening to this too. Okay, so let's say
can I back up real quick? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I just want to talk about, Rachel talked about having $3,000 in assets to your name. I just want to mention sort of the realities that my parents do live with. And they have also, by the way, given me permission to publicly talk about their finances because they also want to help other people. These are not, to back up, like when they were told that the government would take care of them, they were also told that retirement are your golden years. Now, life has not necessarily gone as they had planned, right, in terms of their health and aging. But when it comes to being on medical assistance for long-term care and the elderly waiver, this is the reality of what they are allowed. So both of my parents are on the waiver. They are also on medical assistance, and they both live in assisted living. They're also considered independent still. They're not in memory care, but they are in assisted living. So each of my parents can have $3,000 in assets, which I keep in a savings account. That's how I pay for their tax return every year. Like that's how I pay for if they need kind of like anything that's like all of a sudden they need new clothes or something like that kind of comes out of savings every year. Above that, they are allowed $120 a month to live off of. So they are allowed now, this is all they have to their name, $3,000 in savings each and $120 a month. Now, what comes out of that $120, they can spend freely. We know the cost of goods right now and how far $120 gets you right now. They buy additional groceries with that. Personal care items like toilet paper comes out of that money. Clothing, anything extra, like going to the movies, going out to eat, anything that is like the joy in life has to come out of that $120 a month. Now, our family, Nick and I, we buy them things regularly. You know, we will buy their toilet paper. We will send a grocery order, things like that, because $120 does not go far. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. And there are other programs that we'll get into that because they are on the waiver and medical assistance, they do qualify for. Mm-hmm. But at a basic level, they're each allowed $3,000 in savings and $120 a month, which I have to manage and then transfer into their essentially a spending account every month. Now, what is provided for them when they are on medical assistance in the waiver is they have a fixed rent rate with the assisted living community. That also continues to change year to year. It, nudges up a little bit, but it is a fixed rent amount. They're also on a plan that gets them 3 meals a day. It also does provide assisted living cares and health care. Now, what I will also say is, this is a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's worth bringing up, is that food service in assisted living is a bit rough, in my opinion. I personally feel like food is medicine, and food nourishes our body so much. And essentially, a school lunch program is probably very similar to an assisted living food service program. It's not great in terms of like quality or supporting aging bodies, and so while they have 3 meals provided, the food component has been tricky. And when you only have $120 a month to live on, like, they would love to have more groceries. They would love to have just the option to have different food or more nourishing food sometimes, but their budget doesn't allow that always. And as much as I would love to cook and bring them meals all the time, my life does not allow for that either, right? Like, that's just not realistic. So I bring this up because when it comes to, again, this idea of like the government's taking care of you, yes, technically they are, but it's not fantastic all the time. And so there is sort of a little expectation versus reality. And again, every assisted living community is different. Every food service that they largely contract are different. Some places I have heard have wonderful food service, and I am so pleased because that's one of the joys really that people have. when they are elderly is their food, not to mention how it supports their bodies in aging. So that is just something that has proven tricky, is like the food bill, the food service, while being on medical assistance and living on this very limited income that they have.
Yeah. And it's like, I guess what I learned through your story is, oh, this is going to be a huge financial relief because they're going to be taken care of by the government, not thinking about, but you're under the guise of the government. They're watching everything you do now. So I think that is also something to think about, is like your freedoms become less too.
Yep.
And that was like something I learned from your story, is like, okay, we're going to do this and it's going to be a relief. However, you have a lot of rules you have to know about and think about.
Yep.
And they're watching you. I did want to get back. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Rachel.
It's a good lesson to us, too, in terms of planning. I meet with clients every once in a while in nursing homes. And I made a comment to a colleague that, like, I was taking these appointments in my 20s, and I would go to nursing homes that were largely medical assistants for long-term care. And I would leave with a renewed passion for saving. We're going to do it the best we can. We're going to, work with what we have. And there can also be a good lesson to us in terms of, some of these promises aren't what were made to us. And
Yep, exactly. I could not agree with that more. I feel like I ask myself all the time, like, first of all, I don't know what aging for us looks like, or our care systems look like right now. We're in a bit of a care crisis, I feel, in America. But also the cost of care is enormous. Taking care of our bodies now, like, it goes beyond the financial, but the planning, the pre-planning is invaluable. Like, it is so important for us. Like, if our generation takes one thing away from this time and being sandwiched, it's that, like, we got to step up and plan for our future, because A, it's expensive, and B, like, there are options that we have now that if we plan for them, if we don't, I mean, I feel like that's been an overarching theme of this podcast in general, is like, the earlier, the better. It's never too late, but it's also never too early to start planning for all of these things.
Yes. Okay, guys, that's a wrap on part 1. Please follow us into the next part of this episode, because Rachel really goes deep into the legal stuff and how to tackle medical assistance. So get a cup of coffee and let's do part 2.